everyone, and thank you for joining us. We begin our report with Senate Republicans getting crucial face time with President-elect Donald Trump's top cabinet picks. Trump's choice for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth returned to Capitol Hill Tuesday as he faces scrutiny over a wide range of allegations from sexual assault to workplace misconduct. Hegseth's attorney says his client denies any wrongdoing, but Republicans have mixed reactions.
These allegations that have come up just in the last 12 to 14 hours are a surprise to all of us. And so, yes, he does need to address those.
And I would just urge my Republican colleagues who are very worried, I know a number of them are expressing public concern, it's fine, but I would just urge them before they make up their minds, let him have his hearing and listen to him under oath.
Some of these revelations about Hegseth may have come up sooner in a traditional FBI background check. So far, the Trump transition team has not put its intended nominees through that process, but that could soon change. Trump's transition team says they have a signed memorandum of understanding with the Justice Department saying, quote, this allows the transition team to submit names for background checks and security clearances. This agreement with the Department of Justice will ensure President Trump and his team are ready on day one. We also learned Tuesday that Trump's pick to lead the Drug Enforcement Administration has withdrawn his name from consideration. CBS News chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes is covering the president-elect from West Palm Beach, Florida. CBS News chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes is covering the president-elect from West Palm Beach, Florida. Nancy, good to see you. I just want to start off asking, how is Trump and the transition team feeling right now about Pete Hegseth, given all of this scrutiny that he's faced in the last couple of days?
Well, publicly, Jerika, even this afternoon, they continued to say that they stand by him, that all of this stems from gossip and innuendo. But we are certainly hearing a different story from some top Senate Republicans just in the past few hours than we had been in the past few days. Even someone like Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, who you just played a clip from. Yesterday, she was sort of brushing off these allegations, saying, it's not uncommon for a former soldier to be a wild child. Today, she is saying that these allegations that she's seen in the past 12 to 24 hours are very concerning. They deserve more scrutiny, and that Donald Trump himself was caught off guard. You've got someone like Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who's very close to the president-elect, saying he's got reservations. You've got someone like Kevin Cramer, senator from North Dakota, saying he's worried as well. These are not the kinds of things that Senate Republicans were saying just one day ago or even this morning, which signals that perhaps the winds are shifting on Capitol Hill when it comes to Pete Hegseth. And I'd go a step further, Jerika, and say that some of these Trump loyalists would likely not be saying these things publicly had they not already privately spoke to those in Trump's orbit and let them know how they feel.
Nancy, this is sort of impromptu here, but I'm wondering, are any Republicans talking about who could possibly be then that replacement yet, or are we just not quite there when it comes to even considering if Hegseth were to drop out?
I think that's, at least a day or two away. It all depends on what happens with Hegseth. Right now, he is still the president's pick. Right now, the president, at least publicly, continues to be behind him. And so I think it's unlikely that Senate Republicans would start musing openly about who they might like to see in the job if indeed Pete Hegseth isn't the pick. Because remember, Republicans come January will have a majority in the Senate, but it'll be a very slim majority. And any one of the president's nominees can only afford to lose a handful of Republican votes and still get confirmed, assuming that all Democrats vote no. And on many of these controversial picks, they likely are going to all vote no. And so if even a small number, even half a dozen Senate Republicans signal to the Trump team that they're dug in, that they can't support Pete Hegseth, then his nomination is going to be in big trouble. But we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, such an important role, Department of Defense, with a very, very large budget. Nancy Cordes, thank you. Let's turn now to CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill. Obviously, we're talking a lot about Pete Hegseth. You spent the day meeting with Republican senators, talking to those who met with Hegseth. What's the mood within the Senate about the chances of his confirmation?
There was a moment mid-afternoon, Jerika, where you could feel an inflection point. You could feel it bouncing off the marble walls here. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, among the most ardent loyalists and defenders of Donald Trump, had this to say to CBS News when we asked his thoughts on the latest developments with Pete Hegseth.
Some of these articles are very disturbing. He, obviously has a chance to defend himself here, but, some of this stuff is going to be difficult. Some of the things have to be addressed, and, we'll see.
That type of equivocation, that type of statement about Pete Hegseth can be contagious around these parts. Other Republicans could pick up on it as cover to say the same thing, or may feel emboldened to be even more critical. That's why this is a contagion Pete Hegseth needs to cut off, or he will wither amid it.
Scott, senators also met with Trump's pick for Attorney General, Pam Bondi. How did those meetings go?
Yeah, Pam Bondi was making the rounds still only with Republican senators. And again, a group of senators I'd characterize as devoted Trump loyalists so far, Republicans from Florida to Missouri. We asked Pam Bondi, as she emerged from one of those meetings, if she would consider, as Attorney General, stopping the January 6th prosecutions. She didn't answer that question. She didn't answer any questions from the group that was gathered outside her meetings. But Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt, a former state attorney general who knows Bondi quite well, did speak about what he thinks Pam Bondi should do if she wins the post.
Do you think she should be committing either way on continuing things like the January 6th prosecutions or some of the cases that are pending now under DOJ?
Well, I think what President Trump has said is that each one of those cases, the J6 cases, are going to be evaluated individually, and they should. That's exactly how you should look at it as a prosecutor. But Pam Bondi, I know Pam Bondi well from my Attorney General days. She's very well qualified. She's smart. She's tough. She's a great pick by President Trump.
So that has left us in this unexpected but distinctive scenario where Pam Bondi, Trump's would-be nominee to run the Department of Justice, an agency he has said he wants to overhaul and deconstruct and reconstruct, has been kind of flying below the radar, with all the attention going to Pete Hegseth and elsewhere. We'll see if she can maintain that lower profile, despite the very high-profile position she's seeking, over the coming days and coming weeks.
Switching gears a little bit, Scott, Senate Democrats have chosen to re-elect Chuck Schumer, as you know, has been a senator since 1999. He was selected again as the minority leader. Last year, we saw Democrats in the House elected sort of a new slate of younger lawmakers to top positions. Why are the dynamics, why do they appear to be really so different in the Senate?
Yeah, in the Democratic Party here on Capitol Hill, seniority always tends to rule the day. No surprise, the Senate leadership stayed the same. Seniority wins out. They believe in their leader. The House side, it'll be the same overall leadership. But watch the younger members of the House try to grab some powerful, prominent positions on the committees, trying to effort what I characterize as a youth movement. They may characterize as a change movement, trying to get past the seniority system. They say they may need new voices, new ears, new blood after the bludgeoning they took on Election Day as they try to reemerge from the forest they're in politically until the next election.
Always good to have a balance of youth and wisdom, right? Scott MacFarlane for us. Thank you so much.